and welcome to the Ultimate Psychic Challenge, the show which will attempt to answer one of the biggest questions that we face. Tonight we ask, can we talk to the dead? Well, if the answer is yes, it will revolutionise the way we view our world. But if the answer proves to be no, then millions of believers face a crisis of faith. Well, tonight we're bringing together the world's foremost psychic investigator and one of the most respected mediums, and each will demonstrate what they believe by showing us what they can do. We'll take nothing for granted, everything will be challenged, and we'll be putting their skills to the test. Now, we have with us scientists and other experts who spend their lives investigating psychic phenomena. And we're going to be hearing from individuals who believe they've had messages from the spirit world, and from skeptics who argue that such communication is impossible. Well, it's going to be an interesting and a challenging night, and we're going to begin with turning to our studio audience. Now, we want to know what you believe. Can we communicate with the dead? Do you believe this is true? Do you believe it's false? Or just are you undecided? Now, you've all got little pads on which you can vote, so grab those and vote now. Do you believe? Do you not believe? Or are you undecided? Right, it's a very clear picture there. So 44% are believers, 19% are non-believers, and 37% are undecided. They're just not sure. Well, we're hoping that we're going to clear up some of that indecision tonight. So could the believers here raise their hands? Let's find out where you are. Right, OK, let's talk to you over here then. Why do you believe?
A long, long time ago, I woke up in my bedroom and there was a Jewish guy at the bottom of my bed. I was just astonished.
OK, so you think you have evidence that makes you believe. Let's talk to somebody who doesn't believe. Who doesn't believe at all? Let's go over here. Let's talk to you, sir. Now, why are you so cynical?
Just no evidence has really come up that's convinced me.
You need convincing. You need proof.
I need proof, yeah.
All right, OK. Well, we may just have the proof for you during this show, but Professor Chris French from Goldsmiths College at the University of London is also with us tonight. Very interesting, isn't it? You know, you're a psychologist and you deal with this area and you study this area in general. What makes some people believe and what makes some people be so convinced it can't be true?
Well, in some cases, it may be that people believe for religious reasons, not on the basis of any personal experience that they've actually had. On the other hand, there's a sizable minority of the population who do claim that they've had direct personal experiences that lead them to believe in life after death. It may be, for example, an apparitional experience, as we just heard about. It may be a near-death experience. It may be going to see a medium that they personally have found very convincing.
So looking at the way our audience voted, is that the way the general public would normally vote?
I think that was a little bit on the high side, 44% believing in the possibility of communication with the dead. And it may reflect the fact that, looking around this audience, I think there's a predominance of females. Survey after survey, when gender differences are found, it's women who are much more likely to believe than men.
Let's get the terminology right so we all know what we're talking about. What is this area of science called?
Well, parapsychology really is the study of ESP, extrasensory perception, psychokinesis, the alleged ability to influence the external world just by the power of the mind, and, importantly for us tonight, the evidence relating to the possibility of survival, the possibility of life after death.
Chris, thanks very much indeed. We're going to be speaking to Chris French again later, but now I want you to meet Adam Jersin. Now, Adam is one of America's most popular psychics, and he's flown over from Miami to be with us, and he hopes to have messages for some of our audience. So, ladies and gentlemen, Adam Jersin.
Great pleasure.
Great pleasure. Lovely to have you. Thanks for coming all the way from Miami. I know this is quite an unusual situation. Have you ever tried to pick up messages in a situation like this, in a studio, in a live situation?
No, this is very difficult for me because I usually do a one-on-one relationship, you see.
Okay.
Where I talk directly to one person and we chat.
What will you be trying to get in touch with? Do you have spirit guides?
All I can tell is what I hear. All I can tell is what is told to me, and I have to repeat that to an audience.
Would you like to take a moment to just focus and get in touch with what you need to?
Yes, and I'd like to say this to this audience. Again, I'm on the other side of the world, and with a little jet lag, as a matter of fact. Let's start right from the beginning. Now, I'm going to try to center in on one individual. The first one, there's a Peggy looking for Ray. Is there someone named Ray here? Let's see a hand if there's... Your name is Ray? Oh, I see. Oh, all right. Gee, Peggy, do you recognize a Peggy?
Yeah.
A deceased Peggy. Well, Peggy said she knows that you used to live in a place with a... No, she wouldn't do that. She said, don't try roller skating on a spiral staircase. Does that mean anything to you? Do you roller skate?
Yes.
You do roller skate, I see, but you don't do it on spiral staircases.
No, no.
She's saying to me, and I don't believe this is her joke, I'm sure. She's saying she had a spiral staircase in a place that she hopes they cleared the dead bodies out first. Was there a fire there or something, or what was this? Did you...
I used to live in a morgue.
You used to live in the morgue? Well, did they clean the bodies out before you went there, though?
Yeah, it was good.
Okay, all right. That's very strange. Now, I don't know whether this is good or bad. You have a favorite pop star that you named a dog after? Is that true? What is that name?
He's called Chesney.
Chesney. Did you do that because you don't like Chesney or because you do like Chesney?
He was already called that when we got in.
I see. Well, you have a dog named Chesney, though. Have you had Chesney very long?
Yeah.
I see. And Chesney's, both Chesneys have been around for a while then in your life, have they? Mm-hmm. I see. Well, congratulations on that.
Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. That was some pretty extraordinary stuff there. I think Ray's still pretty shocked, aren't you, down there in the front? You can't quite believe what you're saying.
Thank you.
We do have to go to a break, though, so just bear with us for a moment. We'll hear more from you in just a moment. We'll be back after break to hear more of Adam's messages from the dead. See you in a moment. Hello again. Can we communicate with the dead? That's the question we're asking tonight. Now, before the break, Adam Jersin, our psychic, told us that a member of our audience had lived in a place where there were lots of bodies. How do these messages come through to you, Adam? Do you hear voices? Are there images?
Sometimes I don't know whether I actually hear an audible voice, but I get a sound of something. You know, I have to interpret it. And sometimes the interpretation is wrong, and sometimes people have to help me. Yes.
Are you still in touch with those voices, those spirits?
Yes, I am.
Can you give us any more messages for our audience, do you think?
Well, I can only say what I hear, mind you, but we'll try that.
Okay.
And
all right, I'll let you get on with that. I'll leave you to focus on that.
I wonder what else. Now, Peggy, you got anything else to tell me? Oh, all right. Have you been to the airport lately? Did you go to visit the airport lately to pick someone up? No? Because she says your brother feels badly about that. Were you supposed to meet your brother? Did he come from a long ways away, from the other side of the globe pretty well?
Yeah.
Where did he come from?
Australia. From
Australia. And he came into the airport and you didn't meet him? Well, you'll have to answer to him for that. But Peggy's wondering why. She says, Peggy's leaving now, but she just wanted to leave you with this. I hope she's not still such a mess up. Do you relate to that at all?
My flatmate, probably.
I see.
Flatmate, yeah.
Okay, all right. Because she remembers you with dishes piled all over your sink and knives and forks left and right. You just wouldn't wash those dishes until someone came to you, Ray, and said, clean up this kitchen. Okay, well, I thank you very much. Thank you for your participation.
Okay.
I think that's as much as we can do with this audience.
Adam, thanks very much indeed. Look, why don't you come over and join me now? We'll have
all right, I'll do that.
You must be exhausted from all of that. Do take a seat. Do sit down. Now, we've got to come clean about something, haven't we?
What?
I'm afraid this gentleman is not Adam Jersin, the psychic, but he is, in fact, James Randi, one of the world's foremost investigators of the paranormal. He's a magician who, for the last 56 years, has turned a skeptical eye on everything from dowsing to spoon bending, using his magician skills to replicate and so expose the tricks used by fakes claiming paranormal powers. But what would normally happen in a situation like this?
The game is really a game of 20 questions. It's really throwing out ideas and names and waiting for people to identify with them and then fill you in on the details. If you record carefully some of these, what they call cold readings in the trade, if you record them on tape and then analyze them, transcribe them and analyze them, you find out that about 2/3 to 3/4 of what is developed during a meeting like this is given by the sitter, not by the psychic. Because they'll throw something, I'm getting D, and they'll say dawn. Yes, exactly.
So what are you looking for then? Give us an idea
Well,
of how it
you're
works.
looking for common situations. You're looking for situations that are something that most people go through. And what people are concerned about is money and health and home and loved ones and travel. These things interest them. And if you can get those into the conversation, you find that you often got a great number of hits.
So it works by a mixture of statistics, psychology, and good old-fashioned intuition.
Exactly.
There's no conversation with the spirit world at all.
Not that I know of, and mind you, I've looked for it for many, many years now. Doesn't mean that I won't find it tomorrow.
Skeptics like James Randi claim that techniques such as cold reading can be passed off as psychic powers. Now, Tony Ewins is editor of Britain's Skeptical Inquirer. We challenged Tony Ewins to teach actor Ian Rose to cold read and then pass himself off as a psychic. Tony had only 2 hours to prove himself. Cold reading is a technique based on statistics and common experience. For though we all like to think we're individuals, the fact is that there are many things that are true for all of us.
So I say to someone, I see there's some difficulty with relationships at the moment in your family. That can mean anything, really. It can mean you had an argument with your daughter that day, you're getting divorced, all sorts of wide range of things which enable them to fit it. Or you can say trivia, really. You can throw out other things, you know, like someone's birthday's coming up now, there's a wedding coming up shortly, or I see some sort of family celebration, this type of thing.
Tony Ewins claims cold reading is a technique anyone can learn.
One thing that'll help you as an actor, I think, is getting into a role. Only this time you're going to be creating the role for yourself. You know, you don't need to dress funny. You don't need to be different and weird or anything else like that.
Where do you go if you try something and you get nowhere with that?
You just say the words, they bring the meaning to this. One of the things working in your favour is that people will remember the hits and forget all the things you got wrong. One magician described this as the best trick in the world because there are no sleight of hand, there are no mirrors, there's nothing to get caught out on, and it's just totally invisible. You can't get caught cheating.
Ian had half an hour to revise what he'd learned before the arrival of his first ever client. Tony watches from next door to see how his pupil performs.
What sort of expectations do you have of what we're going to achieve, or?
I don't really know. It's just for the first time. It's just very curious.
Yeah.
Just to find out.
Okay.
If I'm a believer or if I'm not.
I'll tell you a little bit of the background how I got interested in this. When I was 18, I had a very vivid and intense precognition, and I spoke to my mother about it. And it was then that she told me for the first time that my grandmother was a medium. And eventually, I was contacted, or I made contact with my own spirit guide. But I have to say, she's not always as forthcoming as she might be. And I don't know about the cameras, but I hope we can get something.
This is great, just setting the scene, because the more he believes in him, the more he's going to accept what it is.
You give yourself kind of a hard time about organisation.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You think you should sort that out. You should be better about things like that.
Yeah.
This isn't a monologue he's doing. He's getting his involvement and he's getting him open up to respond, which is terrific.
Have you had some worry about a child, or there's definitely a child that's either important to you or could be in your past? No, it's now. There is a child in your life.
Yeah, I have a daughter, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That was good.
Okay.
I really like that. Well, there was a little bit of a risk there, but it paid off, and it was worth doing, and he could cover it anyway, because he could use something else there's going to be.
Someone was in your life, someone was a part of your life a while ago, and then you lost touch, or they went out of your life, and then they came back into it. Has that happened to you? Yeah?
Yeah.
I think you're going to find, for whatever reason, that's going to be quite beneficial. It's going to present support, and
Now, this is a bang on the nail.
I think you can trust your instincts with that as well.
That does make a lot of sense, because I haven't seen him for years, and now
Look at that.
we're doing some work together, so...
Right.
Now he's going to remember this, because that's a hit. That's important. He's going to know that, and that's going to score. and that'll blow them away.
After 15 minutes, Ian was doing so well, we felt we had to stop the reading and come clean.
Ian, in fact, is an actor, and he literally had a lesson on how to be a reader.
Really?
Yeah.
And you're the first time he's done one. And he literally had a 3-hour lesson beforehand.
He tricked me.
Yeah?
God, it was well done, because you just touched on a few real things, real truths.
Right.
Someone has come back into my life recently, one of my friends that we haven't spoken to for about 10 years.
You know what I would have done if you'd have said no? I could have just said, well, look out, because there's going to be.
Hi.
Oh, Mikey.
Oh, yeah.
You did really well.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Cheers.
That was terrific.
Thank you.
It really was.
When can I have the lessons?
Good question. Ian, that's quite an achievement.
Oh, thank you, yeah. I mean, it was just, I struck lucky. I just started talking about myself and made some guesses. He was a guy in his 30s. There's bound to be a child in his life. I just bumped into someone I hadn't met sort of for a long time. So, you know, I just struck lucky, really.
OK, have you given up your day job, or are you going to still try doing other parts? Or is this the only part you're going to play now?
If I had a day job at the moment, I might consider giving up. But, I'm easy. Too sunny.
Well, hope we looked after you. Hope we bought you lunch at the very least.
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. Now, the thing is that you did come out with some incredible information. Now, Ray there down the front, I mean, how did you know that Ray had lived once in a morgue? Because you connected her with bodies.
With a spiral staircase.
With a spiral staircase, and that she roller skates.
Well, we did a little bit of research. After all, people who came to this had to give their names, their telephone numbers and addresses. Looked up a few friends of yours, Ray. But I knew very well where you were sitting and that you were a female. We did some research.
So it was a con? You
Oh,
did
yes,
your work,
exactly.
you got the information, and you conned her. I'm sorry about that.
And that's what we call a hot reading, by the way.
So, look, why do you do this? Why are you going around conning good people like Ray? What's the point of it?
I'm trying to teach people that they should be very careful about what they accept. There are people out there that will tell them lies, that will swindle them, will take their money and their emotional security by pretending that they're making contact with outer spirits and such. And those people are dishonest. Those people will take advantage of you, and it can be very damaging. And I'm just saying, listen carefully. Consider these things carefully. Don't believe it the first time you hear it.
You don't believe yourself, though, do you? You don't believe at all. So doesn't that make you, in a sense, a poor investigator? Because you're just as convinced as the believers are.
But believe me, Kate, I am certainly willing to believe. All you have to do is prove it to me with evidence. I don't believe no, because I don't think anyone in this audience believes in Father Christmas.
Mind you, looking in the mirror,
Well,
I
that's
would
true, too.
sometimes suspect it with you.
I admit one thing, I'm very popular at the end of December.
I bet you are. I bet you are, James. Thanks very much indeed. Now, for this programme, we also did our own research, rather like the sort of work that James does. We armed a researcher with a phone book, a travel pass and a computer with internet access, and gave her 24 hours to discover what she could about some of the people in this very audience. Our researcher set out to prove how easy it is to get basic information about anyone.
What I'm doing is looking for information which is in the public domain, so therefore anyone can do this. One of the most obvious and accessible sources is the internet. You have email member profiles on each of the main servers. Friends Reunited has been very useful. Some of the really interesting details I found out. One guy had a terrible dandruff, apparently, according to his classmates. One woman wrote down her children's names and their ages. And another was really into astronomy. You can email the fellow class leavers, and if you're lucky, they email you back with all the juicy gossip of what happened. You know, who was the control freak at school, who slept with who. I mean, just great stuff. And then, of course, there's the old-fashioned trusty phone directory, where most people are listed with addresses. We'll just go to that address and look at the house, see if there's any construction going on, see if there's a car parked outside, maybe peek into the window.
And then, of course, there are public records, which are open to everyone.
The Family Record Centre has been very useful because there's an index of births, deaths and marriages for the whole of the British Isles. We can find out exactly who's passed away recently, when, where, all that kind of information.
And once you've got someone in your sights, their place of work is the next stop. One member of the audience worked in a leisure centre.
I found out quite a lot about her. She's married. She's about 33 and she's got 2 children. She works part-time, and she's office manager. So that's quite a lot. And I know what she looks like. There's a photograph of her on the wall.
And leaders here tonight. Now, how easy was it to get that information?
Well, I haven't researched something like this before, this specific, but it is quite amazing how much information you can find on people out there in the public domain while still staying on the right side of the law.
Yeah, I mean, James, would psychics really take that time to research so many people?
They better, or they'll be out of business in no time. Because they make a lot of money, remember, Kate. It's a very, very lucrative business.
You see, there were histers in the audience there to what you said, and there are a lot of people, there are thousands of people who genuinely believe in what psychics do. Why do you not believe them?
I have a very strong feeling that these things are not so, but I'm willing to be shown. Show me.
OK, well, James, for the moment, thanks very much indeed. So, hot and cold readings, magicians, mind games. Has any of what you've seen so far changed your minds at home? Well, let's see if it's changed the minds of our audience. I don't know. You've got your pads there. Let's see if anybody has altered their beliefs. So, do you believe that we can talk to the dead? Do you not believe we can talk to the dead? Or are you undecided? Vote now. Let's have a look. Right, well, 43% are believers, 28% are non-believers, and 29% are undecided. So, interestingly, there are, I think it's about the same in terms of undecided non-believers, and the believers still remain the strongest in the audience. OK, now, is there anybody who's undecided, who didn't know what to believe? Have they been influenced at all so far? So what do you think now?
I have gone from an undecided to a non-believer.
So you think that there's enough in what James does, in the tricks and the information that he has, to convince you that he could be a psychic?
Yes.
All right. OK. Now, Chris, would you expect that sort of pattern to be emerging? Would you expect people to have changed their minds more or less?
Well, not really. I mean, if I'd started off as a believer, then I might be quite happy to accept that there are some people who can make it look as if they can communicate with the dead, but they're not the real thing. But I might still believe that there are some people who are the real thing.
Is there something about the nature of belief, particularly this sort of belief, which is very, very difficult to prove, that makes us unwilling to change our mind in either direction?
I mean, I think in terms of wanting to believe in life after death, it's obviously an extremely comforting belief. We'd all like to believe that when we die, in some sense, that's not the end of us, and the same for our loved ones. And we find it very easy to believe things that we want to believe anyway. And so maybe we'll be persuaded on the basis of evidence that perhaps we shouldn't be. Similarly, we might find with the sceptics that they will take a lot of convincing before they'd actually admit that maybe they're wrong. So if we're very wedded to a belief, then we're going to take some shaking.
Now, Tony, do you completely dismiss the possibility that it could be true?
Well, you can never completely dismiss. It's just that I feel that the evidence so far doesn't show any difference between cold reading and genuine phenomena. It looks the same. So therefore I choose the cold reading as the most likely explanation.
Would you like to believe?
It would be nice, wouldn't it, in many ways, because nobody particularly looks forward to death. And you've only got to look through the in memoriam columns in newspapers. People put messages in there because they still feel, some of them are very old, you know, 30 years later they're still putting messages in there because we miss people. They mean a lot to us, and it's a sad fact of the human condition that people will die. So it would be nice to be true. There is a comfort there. But I don't think, because I don't actually believe it, I get no comfort from what I regard as a fool's paradise. It just doesn't exist to me.
OK, fool's paradise. Tony, for the moment, thanks very much. Coming up after the break, we're going to meet the scientist who is investigating claims of life after death. Don't go away. Hi there. Can we talk to the dead? It's the ultimate psychic challenge. 43% of our audience believe that we can. Now, skeptics claim that people who consult with psychics and mediums often fool themselves, that they selectively remember what the psychic got right and forget what they got wrong. It's called false memory. Now, Tony, how does false memory work?
People tend to remember the hits and forget the misses. I've had various readings myself in the past, and even I know what's going on. you can't help but when someone gets something right, it really does hit home.
Tony, for the moment, thanks very much. We asked Tony to put his theory about false memory to the test, and we found a volunteer, Sid, who is a believer, and arranged for her to visit psychic Betty Ross. And we filmed the reading, and afterwards Sid watched our footage back with Tony.
Betty gave readings to two people with similar results.
Unless, if I say something that has no meaning for you, say nothing. If I say something that sounds absolutely right, can you say yes in a bright way?
Yes.
Exactly. Oh, that's it. My goodness me. You must come with me everywhere, because that raises the vibrational energies.
So if anything registers, it means it has a strong meaning, not if a vague meaning or no meaning. She knows it's strong and she can follow it. Because you said yes with a bright voice.
Yeah. I'm now being shown some illustrations from Beatrix Potter. You know,
that wasn't my childhood, I'm afraid.
Right.
We were far rougher than that.
You're being cautioned a bit to be careful in the dark in case you trip.
Okay. Last night I fell over in the dark on a rug which is outside my bedroom, which I've been meaning to move and change for ages, and actually.
I'm also seeing somebody who used to toss pancakes.
From this pancake detail, Sid immediately decides her grandmother has come through.
Right, this is my nan.
Right.
They're looking down at you with eyes of love, I'm being told. Do you understand that?
Yes, it's very nice.
There's a lot of affection there.
So have we established who this person is yet? I know you have in your mind, but is she?
No.
Right, so she's saying this person?
Yeah.
Right.
Sid continues to see her grandmother in Betty's readings.
What's it called now? Sugared icing and a shaker. And
this is something that my nan was renowned for, making cakes.
Right. My mother used to make cakes. I mean, it's not an unusual thing, and particularly for the older generation.
And she's talking about the butterfly cake.
Yes,
she did.
That was our favourite.
Yeah, she's showing me it actually right now. Yeah. Love is all around, you know. Yeah. And there was loads of her. She was a very positive force in your life, this lady, but she continues to be a positive force because she loves you, darling.
Which is
she
lovely.
used to say that she loves you and she let you know that you were loved. She was your window on happiness and success. Do you understand that, darling? I know. And she's she was very playful. She used to play children's games with you. Yes. And she would play games like you go on little adventures together.
But this is the yeses thing, so she's focused on this and not moved. This is getting a reaction from you. To be absolutely successful at being a medium is when you can draw emotion in people. Because it does cloud your judgment. Now you've got more, I think, looking back. You can be slightly detached from it.
Yeah, I think that she did get some good things, and she did very accurately describe some people that I have had relationships with.
There's a lot of information she's thrown out there.
Yeah.
I mean, some of it I could have resonance for me as well. And if I'm just saying yes at the right point, she's going to go with that and go down a different branch maybe than she did with you.
I am what you'd call a believer.
Right.
And I do think that she certainly has some ability.
Yeah.
I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if it's spirit guides or some kind of form of telepathy. But she did put her finger on the spot.
Yes, but how many other people did she hit the spot for, I guess? Let me just ask the audience. How many of you have a relationship or have memories of a loving relationship, a warm relationship with your grandmother? Hands up. The very hefty majority, isn't it? There's a big majority of hands up in the air. So, Sid, do you still believe, even after what you heard Tony say there in that report, do you still believe that she was in touch with your grandmother?
Well, like I said on the film, I'm not sure whether Betty was actually in contact with a spirit, but I do believe that human beings are capable of picking up on lots of other things that we necessarily haven't yet discovered. I'm not sure if it's the dead. I guess I'm a borderline believer, but I think there was an extra sensory perception going on.
OK, all right. Well, Betty is here with us tonight. Now, Betty, we know that you're a very, very sincere person and you believe in what you're doing. You're not trying to fool anyone. But what do you think of the argument that people like Tony put forward that false memory is responsible for, in a sense, a lot of your successes in your readings?
I think that one has to look at the total picture. Amongst other things, I'm a precognitive psychic artist. I brought along drawings that I'd done before I'd ever met her back home, and she said, that's my grandmother. She saw the drawing. I'd never met this woman before. There's the drawing. That's my grandmother. Whilst I saw her, they've not given all the evidence as a global chunk of evidence. I said, I've got a man here with a false moustache. She said, oh, yes, my grandfather. Is that right? I'm a bit distressed that there's been this selective picking out to rather weaken the case. It's very strong evidence, but it's not being presented here.
OK, well, so you have a very, very clear reading, and you have very convinced, and you convinced Sid, certainly, that you were in touch with her grandmother. But do you accept that some psychics, that there are psychics and there are readings that are conducted which could relate to a lot of people? Can you see where the argument comes from?
No, I'll tell you why. Because if you're actually dealing with sincere clairvoyance, and there are some here, we work from the platform and we go directly to people. Can I come to you, Mr. Randy? You know, that sort of directness. 14th of September, 1927. Yes, that was when he was born. That kind of... I've never done any research. We don't do it. Clairvoyants who are charlatans might, but we don't. And I resent infinitely the implication that we are charlatans nicking money from people. We are compassionate, caring people who make that bridge for people.
Well, that's a very clear point, well made. And an awful lot of people agree with you. I did, however, see Tony shaking his head. No, you don't agree with that. Why were you shaking your head?
Well, I saw both the readings that we're talking about here. The drawings that were shown in the beginning weren't just shown as drawing. Does that mean anything to you? You were saying, do the eyes mean something to you? The nose? It was sort of almost an identical picture you were picking out. It wasn't just, yes, that's him. And also the business, I don't think you did recognise your grandma, did you?
No,
in the picture.
Actually,
No.
it wasn't me.
We're going to hear both sides of the argument. We'll give a chance for everyone to put their case tonight. Now, we know that James Randi has no psychic powers. We've already discovered that. But he does claim to know something about human psychology. So before the show, we asked 5 members of the audience to fill out a questionnaire about their personality, and we asked James to study their answers and to give us a psychological profile of each person. Now, we want you all to read James's description, his psychological profile, and to score it for accuracy on a scale of 1 to 5. 5 being the most accurate. OK, so if you really feel he's got it on the button, give him a 5. Just have a little look.
Yeah, we've got some...
There's some flicker of recognition
I
there,
see some
James.
nods there, yes.
I can see some nods too.
I see a satisfied customer up there.
OK, then, so you've had a look, you made your judgments. Who has given James 5 out of 5? No?
There's one.
You
right
have?
there. Yes.
OK, you think he's really got it sorted?
Yeah, more or less.
OK, so what in particular about his assessment rang true to you?
Forgiving others. When they've done something across you, find it hard to forgive.
OK, so it's really struck home. OK, now I want you to swap over with somebody else. There we go now. Who else had a profile?
They've just switched, yes.
OK, I need to switch again so that you can have a chance.
all right.
There we go. All right. There you go. Right, now have a look at the profiles written about the other people. Ah, I suspect there's a flicker of something going on. Why are you giggling over there?
Exactly the same one as the one I had previously. They're all the same.
Oh, you were very similar to the other person, I can assure you.
All the profiles are the same.
They're
Right,
exactly the same, word for word.
Well, that's interesting. So he got you absolutely right, but he kind of got everyone else absolutely right too. What do you think about that?
Fluke.
Now, Chris, how do you explain this?
If I wanted to set up as a fake psychic, then I could use this effect. It's called the Barnum effect. So, for example, I can say to people, I can tell that you've got a better than average sense of humour. And everybody agrees with that. You know,
they would think they've got a bad one, do
If other people don't laugh at what you laugh at, they're the one with the problem. You've got the right sense of humour. You say to anyone, you've achieved a lot in life, but there's so much more there. You've got so much more potential. And everybody thinks, yeah, that's me. And again, the thing is, we're all like that. And so you can use this to kind of pad out a reading if you, in fact, wanted to convince someone that you really could see into their innermost personality.
Now, did you ever actually look at the questionnaires they filled in?
Oh, no, I didn't see them at all. They're still sealed up in those envelopes. I didn't even look at them.
All that hard work gone to waste, all that filling in.
And this has been issued for literally hundreds of people all around the world in many different languages, and they've all said, oh, bang on, wonderful, you've really got me there.
Are you ever going to change your mind? Are you ever going to be convinced?
If I have evidence, yes. I'm willing to change my mind, friends. I will accept it if the evidence is convincing. It doesn't have to necessarily be only convincing to me. I'm willing to be shown.
Well, other people are shouting rubbish. They don't agree with you. I tell you what, though,
but
this
they
might
won't
change
be
his mind.
convinced, you see. I will be convinced if the evidence is there, but they will never change their mind.
OK, OK. Well, thanks very much indeed, though. James, thank you.
Thank you.
OK, right, after that experiment, let's see who believes, who doesn't believe, and who is still undecided. So get those little voting pads out again. And vote now. Do you believe, do you not believe, or are you undecided? And let's see the way you're thinking after that experiment. All right, there are the figures. So 44% are believers, 29% are non-believers, and undecided, 27%. So still 27 of you have not made up your mind, but of course there's 1% gone on to the non-believers and believers, so it's gone down a little bit. Well, let's see how we can influence you and see how you might make up your minds during the course of the show. Now, joining us in a moment is Keith Charles. He's one of Britain's best mediums, certainly best known. This is what the American police say about him.
I would open up any case that Keith would want to be interested in, and I would take any information that he gave and work on it 24/7.
Keith Charles, let's welcome him. Hi, Keith. Hi, Keith. Okay, let's go and sit down. Yeah, brilliant. Now, before becoming a full-time medium, Keith was a detective with the Metropolitan Police in London. Thanks for coming on. Now, they're quite a tough bunch, the Met, aren't they?
They are, cynical lot, yeah.
Yeah, what do they
like
think?
all policemen.
What do they think, first of all?
I mean, I used to get voodoo dolls left on my desk, you know, packs of tarot cards, all sorts of things.
We played a lot of tricks on our audience tonight, but there are no tricks here. You genuinely believe in what you do. So let's clear up, because we're losing a lot of terminology tonight. Are you medium? Are you psychic? Are you what are you?
Sure, I'm a spiritualist medium. Right. Now, the job of a medium is to hopefully prove survival of the human spirit after it leaves this earth. In other words, prove life after death. Lots of people will have the word psychic, which combines things like tarot readings and even tea leaves and runes and all that sort of thing. And it sort of all gets brushed under this umbrella of psychic.
But you specifically talk to people who've passed on.
Specifically, they talk to me.
That's interesting, because I can't imagine what that must feel like. I mean, do you get smells? Do you get images? Do you hear voices? Do they have accents? I mean, what happens?
More or less all of that. What happens is, if the easiest way of describing it is, if you and I have had a conversation and you leave here and you're driving home and you're recalling that conversation, you hear that in your own head, but it's my voice that you're hearing. That's how it works for me. And I say hopefully because whenever a medium stands on a stage or a platform or an event like this, we are reliant on those that have passed over contacting us. We can't do requests unlike a DJ, you know, and that's what I find a little bit objectionable when somebody says, who do you want to get in touch with? I'll get in touch with them, you know, because heaven's a much more active place than what we give it credit for.
You must have come across skeptics in your
Absolutely.
time. People who, at the very least, don't understand what you do and possibly even laugh at what you do. I mean, what do you say to them?
I really would like to say to people, you will never find a medium tell you you must believe in what I believe in. Not a reputable one. What a medium will tell you and what a spiritualist will tell you is we believe in a life after death. The only thing different between us and any other orthodox religion is we try and prove it. And for the people who say, well, you go out and you prey on people's emotions and all that sort of thing, that is rubbish. I've lost a son, I've lost a granddaughter, and there is no way in the world that I would get any kicks out of standing up and doing some of the demonstrations that you've seen purporting to be mediums.
But now Keith is going to demonstrate his skills as a medium. He's going to attempt to communicate with the dead and to deliver messages to people in this audience. It's not an easy situation, a TV studio, to do this. No.
OK, hello, everybody. Hello. All I'll ask you to do here, anybody here tonight, whether you be those that are sceptical, those that believe, all I want you to be is honest, OK? I will hopefully, and Kate, you've heard, said, contact the dead. Well, they're not dead, they are alive, and we're just hoping that there's somebody who wants to come and talk to us this evening. So if you just give me a minute, I'll just stand here. Don't feel embarrassed that I'm looking at you. Just think how I feel. OK. I have a gentleman that trying to communicate with me at the moment. He's making me feel, there's a lady got your hand like that. I'm sorry to point you. You're wearing blue, and you got your hand across your face, madam. Okay? Do you mind just telling me your name, please?
Tracy.
Tracy. Hello, Tracy. I'm going to describe a gentleman that I have here that's making communication with me. He feels like a father figure to you. He's a gentleman that would have passed over with a heart attack. I don't know who Michael is within the family, but he's making reference to Michael in the family. Do you understand this? He's also telling me, I know this sounds a strange thing, and I've got to go with what he gives me. There's a pet that you've recently lost as well, because he's talking about having the pet, and either you've buried this pet in the garden and made a mistake of it, or whatever you've done with this pet is unusual. I'm sorry to say that, but that's how he's bringing it up. Now, he's also talking about Michael. He's making reference to Michael, and there's a John. I don't know if it's Michael, if he is Michael John or Michael and John, but he's putting Michael and John together. Would you understand that? He is making me feel that August, I know we're coming into the month of August, we're in the month of August now, but he's showing me an anniversary or birthday would be around the 21st, 22nd of August that connects with you. And he's making me feel that when he went to heaven, all right, with this heart condition, it wasn't the first heart attack, heart problem that he had. He would have visited 2 hospitals, or he'd have been into hospital twice over his heart condition. Would you understand this, please? Because he is saying to me that there is, I've got to say this to you, there is an issue with you about feeling guilty about not being there on one occasion. I'm terribly sorry. I'm only going to tell you what he's telling me about you, okay, if I may. He is aware of a problem that you've had with your left foot. Around here there should be a scar or a problem around there, because he is talking about you having a fall, all right? But he's telling me about you, okay, he's ever so pleased to be here. He's ever so pleased, and he is just saying to me, you did not expect communication from him this evening, but you've hoped to have communication from him on another occasion. He's taken off a ring and given it to you, okay? Would you have a ring that belongs to your mum? Not him, but to your mum that you wear? Are you sure? Can we find it? Okay, you're saying no, he's saying yes. Can I discuss this with you? I don't want to argue. I'd like to discuss this with you. If I went to your bedroom, okay, imagine being in your bedroom. There is a chest of drawers like to the bottom right-hand side of the bed. This is how it's going. It's like recently been put there. Over the weekend, over last weekend, you've moved some furniture in your bedroom.
No.
Okay, you say no, I here say yes. The furniture that it's on...
I haven't moved the furniture.
Are you sure? I'll be wrong. I hate it, but I'll be wrong, okay? But he is saying to me, this is the jewellery that he is referring to, okay? And he wants to confirm to you that, yes, you have seen him since he passed over. It's like you've mentioned this. Does this make sense to you? Are you sure? He is showing me, like, where you would keep your, I don't want to be rude, jewellery bits. That's how he's describing it. And there is a ring in there that is either fractured or broken that belongs not to you, but to another lady. And he's talking about your mum. Would you understand that?
Yeah.
Now, can I come to the bottom of your stairs? He's talking about either you've just redecorated or just done something at the bottom of the stairs, like painting or done something there. And he was watching you and you saw him there. Because there's a photograph. You know where the bottom of the stairs is? There is a photograph very close to there of him, is there not? Now, you said no to me. I don't mind, I accept no's. Have you not just decorated or painted where that photograph is?
Recently, not just.
Okay, this is his just, all right? If it's 10 years ago, 2 years ago, I don't want to know. It's like he is saying this to me. Look, that's his message, that's his information to you, all right? That's how he comes across, and he really was looking forward to getting through to this evening. Only for this reason. Obviously to tell you he loves you, that goes without saying. But he is saying this, and I don't want to be disrespectful, he forgives you. There was an issue that you wanted his forgiveness for, and he's saying, there's nothing to forgive, so you're forgiven. It's like a big thing with you over his passing. He's not going too deeply in it because he doesn't, it's divided the family in some way, or there was a split in the family. Do you understand this? And he's like, I'm not even going there because it just doesn't matter to him. Okay? And he's fine. I hope you are. I say God bless you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Please stay down. Let me just have a quick word with Tracy. You look quite emotional about that. How much of that really felt as though it was ringing true?
All of it.
So you do have a father that was called...
Granddad.
A grandfather that was called Michael?
No. But my cousin, who he lived with, was called Michael, and my dad and my brother are called John. And there's a split in the family with John and Michael's mum.
Were you a believer before?
No. Well, undecided. And I've just had a pet put down as well, put to sleep.
Have you?
The
So
dog.
there were 3 key things for you that were completely
Yeah.
right. Do you think you'd be a believer now?
Yeah.
Thanks very much. Okay. Don't go away. Hi there, welcome back. So if life after death does exist, what is it really like? Well, the closest we're likely to get to any kind of answer is by talking to people who've clinically died only to come back to life. Well, these near-death experiences are the subject of scientific research by Dr. Adrian Parker at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden.
A distinctive aspect of near-death experience is the tunnel experience, moving through a tunnel, meeting what they perceive as a bright light, and sometimes meeting departed beings, relatives who are already dead.
Science has begun to develop theories for these tunnel visions. They looked first at the body's chemistry.
Certain aspects of the experience may be linked to deprivation of oxygen, a dying brain, and release of what are called endorphins. That's the brain's own opiate-like substance. Ketamines, for instance, are thought to be involved.
Ketamine is used by clubbers who report some of the same phenomena of the near-death experience.
When you go clubbing, if you overdo ketamine, the first thing you do, it feels like going down a tunnel. And then the ketamine makes you feel like you're floating above. It's a really big spiritual type of effect. Makes you feel like you're floating above all the clouds and along with the planets.
There does seem to be this core out-of-body experience of seeing yourself from another's perspective. Many of these experiences are anecdotal and impressive. For instance, children will describe a relative that they've never met, that died before they were born, describe his belongings, identify him from pictures and so on.
One of the most famous clinical cases of out-of-body experience is that of Pam Reynolds, who returned from the dead with stories to tell.
They were making a quite serious brain operation, and they had to essentially drain the brain of blood. The brain was essentially dead, yet afterwards Pam Reynolds was able to describe a classical near-death experience. The conclusion from that, it would seem strange that when there is no apparent neural activity, no activity in the brain, that nevertheless there is activity in consciousness. I think our brain or our consciousness has an enormous ability to dramatize, to recreate reality, to create other realities. Whether these other realities actually have any existential value or not must be determined by, or can be determined by further research.
And Adrian is here now. Now, you were talking there about the brain's chemistry and how that could account for some visions. I mean, what about children? Because they're not going to be making things up, are they?
Yes, this is quite impressive because children describe exactly the same type of experiences as adults describe, and they've often had no exposure to the type of descriptions that adults have given, and that kind of literature. They're too young for it. And yeah, this leads us to conclude that this is a universal experience, that whatever the nature is, it's not exactly entirely a product of education or culture. It's something that is built into our nature, our functioning.
Well, Adrian, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Well, with me in the studio is Montague Keane, a member of the Society of Psychical Research. Now, who's in this society, then? What's it all about?
The society was founded in 1882, and it's the world's oldest, and I suppose most prestigious, organisation for scientific research into a whole range of activities that are outside or not explained by our ordinary 5 senses and are not explained by orthodox science.
How compelling is the evidence?
The evidence is very compelling. And the strange thing is that the evidence was very compelling for life after death, I may say, over 100 years ago, because over 100 years ago people were very familiar with all the tricks that James Randi has been talking about.
Where do you stand? Has any piece of evidence convinced you, do you think?
Oh, lots of pieces of evidence have convinced me. But my own experience, if you ask about it, has been really quite extensive in the last 5-10 years, especially in sitting with a group of mediums in the village of Skål, where not only did messages come through, and not only did we talk over a period of 2 years, myself and a number of eminent colleagues of mine, with people purporting to be discarnate entities, intelligent entities, but they produced a wide range of physical phenomena which were quite extraordinary and which anyone sitting there and experiencing it would have said it is impossible to fake.
Very, very succinctly. Can you give me one piece of information that's really convinced you?
The appearance of, well, this is, the appearance of light which has irradiated crystals. The crystals have elevated themselves in front of us, several of us. They have disappeared in our grip, reappeared, disappeared again, and reappeared again 3 times. Now, that is absolutely impossible to fake.
Right, OK. Well, thank you very much indeed for giving us your experiences and the reason why you're convinced. Now, Keith is a man who knows something about evidence. On several occasions, Keith has been asked by detectives in Canada and the United States to help them with unsolved cases. So we went to Philadelphia to find out a bit more.
When Keith first arrived in Philadelphia, the police were skeptical and asked him to prove what he could do.
And Keith gave a talk to us and explained basically his background and how he realized he was a psychic. And one of the commanders asked him to give us a demonstration. So he said, "Jim, did you put $200 into your wallet this morning?" Because I usually only carry $25 with me. But in this particular day, I was getting my car inspected. And so I took $200 and put it in my wallet. So I thought that was really something. And do you ever get like a funny feeling, like the hairs on the back of your neck stand up? Well, that's kind of what happened then.
The Philadelphia police were impressed and asked him to help them on some unsolved cases, starting with the savage murder of Willie Kent, killed in an area of the city called the Badlands.
The body appeared to have been eviscerated, the organs were removed, and he was dead for some time.
Before he could help, Keith felt he had to gain the department's trust.
Since most policemen were skeptical, the initial intro was, "I don't want you to really tell me anything about the case." He asked for a plain brown envelope, and it contained a photograph of the deceased, and the envelope was sealed. And he just held the photograph like so between his 2 hands and quietly was like reflecting. And he was picking up some stuff about Mr. Kent himself.
Keith took the envelope in his hands, held it for 20 minutes, and then began to tell the police all sorts of information about the dead man, information he couldn't possibly have known before.
I found him to be very reliable from the information he told, and he knew nothing about it or didn't even see the photo of the deceased.
Keith asked to visit the crime scene, but before he went, he had one new piece of information for the chief of police, a name which had not previously turned up in the case.
The morning before he left to go to that scene, he said to me, "The only thing that I can think of, and I'm kind of ashamed to say, is like a Disney World character, Sleepy." And he looked at me kind of for my reaction, and I said, "Fine."
At the crime scene, Keith came up with more information, which matched what they knew from their own pathologist.
He described the shape of the knife and particularly the shape of the blade. The handle of the weapon had some kind of wrapping. He basically describes the manner in which the deceased died, Mr. Kent.
Then, on the drive back to the police station, there was a breakthrough.
He said, "Could you stop your car for a minute?" And I see him approach 2 males on the street. One male gets on one side of him and one gets on the other, and I'm thinking, oh, he's going to get robbed.
And he just said to them, "Where's Sleepy?" And they said, "He doesn't hang here anymore. He's been hanging, 2 blocks north." And I think Keith said, "Why do they call him Sleepy?" He said, "Because he's up all night doing drugs and stealing, and he nods during the day." From what the detective who was there on the scene said, that there was an immediate reaction to Sleepy, that that he is a guy, and he is around there, and he is a drug addict, and he does steal and rob.
The Philadelphia police are continuing their investigation, and Sleepy is now their main suspect, even though he is currently missing and presumed dead himself. Keith and his information left a lasting impression on the Philadelphia police.
He was very professional about it, very convincing. And I think that after being around for about 42 years, I kind of know when people are sincere and they're not sincere. And he seemed a very sincere guy.
I'll be quite suspect to what others would have to say, what these other so-called psychics who are out and doing what Keith does. But in his ability, I believe.
I would open up any case that Keith would want to be interested in, and I would take any information that he gave and work on it 24/7.
Now, the belief in life after death is fundamental to most major religions, but the Spiritualist Church is one of the very few which encourages direct communication with the dead. Now, Keith Charles is a spiritualist and regularly gives demonstrations, don't you, in churches?
I do, yeah.
How does it affect what you do, being part of the Spiritualist faith?
Well, the spiritualists have a religion, the same as any other religion, and all we do at our services, there is a specific time period that is put over to what we call communication, to doing readings. In general, it has principles, and I suppose the easiest way of summing it up is that you try and do the right thing at the right time for everybody.
Okay. Keith also conducts readings for individuals. We film one of those very private sessions.
I'm being told there is a gentleman here who passed over to spirit. Can I ask you a question, please? Did you go on holiday to a villa or to a property which had a swimming pool?
No.
I'm asking him for a name, and he's given me the name of Dave or David. Would you understand David? Dave?
No.
Can I ask you something? You've come with another lady, haven't you?
Sure, yeah.
I know you've come with another lady because I saw you sat with her.
Yeah.
But see, I've got this gentleman and I've got a lady, and I feel you know both of them. And just to confirm this, do you have this tattoo here?
Yeah.
Then I know that what she is telling me is correct.
Right.
And she's also telling me that either you were engaged twice, but she is talking about she didn't get to see you get married.
Yeah.
Do you understand this? Because she is talking about you being engaged, but you never married.
That's right.
And she has still brought up this gentleman, David. All right? We need to Bianca in.
Yeah.
Or she said B in.
That's it.
Do you understand that? Because she said B.
Mm-hmm.
We stopped our filming and brought the second woman in.
I've asked you to come in because just as I was talking to Michelle here, your mum came in. She is laughing at me because the cameras have gone down, all right? Your mum didn't like having her photograph taken.
No.
She was very camera conscious. But your mum is just telling me, you see, I know your mum now. Yeah. I know her because she says, call me Linda. That is your mum's name, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because she is telling me that you and your dad have had words.
Yeah.
And your father has said to you, you're just like your something mother, like ruddy mother or blooming mother. Do you understand this? Yeah. She is telling me that you speak to her about the kids. Do you understand this? And one of them's got teeth. You've got a son?
Yeah.
And there's something about his teeth you've been telling your mum about?
Yeah.
Do you understand this?
Yeah.
I can see you sitting on a bed with your mum, crying, but talking about your mum saying, don't worry, I'm going to be all right. Do you understand? Yeah. And it has meant so much to you now that you're able to do that with your mum then, that accepting mum is no longer here has been easier for you. And that was her intention. Do you remember what you wore at the funeral?
Yeah.
Was it pink? She is laughing about whatever you wore as being garish. Sorry. Would this make sense to you?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry, coming back to what your mum was saying. February the 26th. You weren't very well around that time. Do you remember at the end of February, beginning of March? You were okay, were you?
I was like, no, I have to think about it.
No, she is talking about...
No, just after
yeah, go on.
You wasn't very well because you collapsed at the top of the stairs.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah, no, I wasn't. No, right.
That's okay, because she's talking about you not being very well. What do you have that is in the papers that refers to your mum that you've kept?
I know what you mean.
Do you understand this? And she is quite pleased about this. It's like, would you have framed it? She's talking about. She's talking about it being framed in some way. I'm not going to do this, but she's saying, "Give him a kiss from me. This is your mum," and like your nan's there as well. She's just nodding. So I just want to say, thanks very much for coming along and doing this. And it's like it was important that your mum got through. So I'll say, God bless you.
He was spot on, you know, just everything that he come out with.
In the newspaper we put in like an obituary, and then we put in every year for her birthday, you know, a little message to mum, say we love you from all the kids, and then we cut them out and we keep them. And Keith said, is it in a frame? Well, it's in a frame, but behind the back of a photograph. And I mean, like my son, you know, talking about my son, you know, about his teeth, that's exactly true. He's having absolute horrors with his teeth. And yeah, just absolutely brilliant.
Had you met either of those two girls before?
Not as far as I'm aware. I know subsequently who they are, because obviously they tell me things about themselves, but I didn't know them before that day.
Well, Keith is certainly putting his faith and his belief in our hands this evening, because he's volunteered to try a demonstration here in the studio. We're going to put Keith on one side of a screen. On the other side will be someone he couldn't possibly have met, someone that we chose at random from the audience queue. Now, I want you to get up, Keith. Come with me. Now, you stay this side of the screen. We don't want any chance of you seeing who we might have in mind. Now, Adrian, our scientist, we need you to get up and come over here, because I want you to make sure that you can be with Keith and check that he has no way of seeing who is on the screen. Now, could we have our volunteer? It's very important that you don't make any noise at all and don't say anything that might indicate to Keith who you are. Now, Keith is going to speak and give things and information to you. All you need to do is nod yes or no. Don't speak, and I'll tell Keith your reaction. That's okay. So I don't know if you need a moment, Keith, but is it possible for you to begin this demonstration?
I'll let you know when I've got somebody here. The first impression I am getting is that there is a lady who wishes to communicate, who would have passed over not too long ago. Now, I'll quantify that in a moment, but I feel there is a recent passing connected to the recipient, the person your side, and I'm being shown here a cancer condition that would have been around my tummy or lower. I'm being shown cancer condition. The lady I will describe to you, because I want to get her closer to me. She's quite short. She's about 5'1", 5'2". She looks to me to be, I'm sorry to say this, when I describe somebody as average build, that's really not fair. But there is a lady who is size 12, 14, and she is making me feel that this lady is talking about, her name is either Barbara or Brenda, because she is talking about being connected to who you have there as connected with her mother or on her mother's side of the family.
So far, I've got to say, a lot of shaking of head, Keith.
What does that mean? No?
No recognition at the moment.
OK, I don't mind that. I don't mind that. Let me just quantify one other thing then, may I? Would the person that you have there, and this is either a yes or a no, OK? Would the person that you have there have a scar that would be on their left forearm down towards the wrist?
No.
OK. Now, this isn't a cop-out, because this is either wrong, right or wrong. Can I just throw this open to somebody your side of the audience? There's not somebody in the audience here who would understand what I'm getting and who would have a scar or a mark, because it's quite easy to check if you've got a scar or a mark on your left forearm or left wrist, would understand a lady...
There is someone who's raising their hand at this point.
OK, because the only... I don't want... Can we carry on with that person and not the person that's behind the screen? And if Adrian can say, I can't see from here...
Yes, we can go with that.
Is that OK?
Make a connection with them, yes.
OK. Would they understand this lady?
Yes.
The lady who passed with the cancer condition?
Yes.
Yes, they're nodding their head. I don't know if you can see this lady, Keith, but they're nodding their head.
I can't see anyone.
See anyone. Okay.
So if we carry on, if you would like to be the interpreter, so to speak, then, Kate.
Yes, I will.
We can still carry on with the experiment. because I am being told here that the lady that's coming through connects on the mother side of the family. She makes me feel, she's giving me the feeling that could be an aunt or cousin. That's how it comes. It's definitely family. It's not just a friend.
Great.
And I'm also being told that there were either 2 hospitals involved, and the person that would be in the audience would either be the person they've spoken to, there would be a Linda connection or a name with Al that I'm getting here.
Well, you rang a bell with the aunt factor, but not so much with that name at this stage.
I don't know if she's like 57, but she's showing me an age around there. Would that make sense?
She was a little older than that.
Keith, OK, well, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there for a moment. Does any of that make sense to you?
Going back to the B name at the beginning, it was Beatty.
Ah, OK. All right, OK. Well, interesting there. Interesting there. You made a connection with somebody, not necessarily our volunteer, but somebody here in the audience, which rang a lot of bells. Join us in a moment. Hi there, welcome back. Well, it's certainly been a fascinating evening and it's not over yet. Now, just before the break, we heard Keith trying to make contact with somebody that may be a relation or maybe somebody to do with a volunteer that we'd set up, hadn't we? You couldn't see the volunteer. Now, you didn't make contact with anybody to do with them, but you did have some contact with somebody else in the audience. Why would something like that happen?
Well, I think the easy answer to that, Kate, is that we, as mediums, cannot do requests. So you would set up an individual that you were hoping that I would contact, and the lady who passed with the cancer took the opportunity to get in.
Now, we're just going to go and see how the audience feel. At the beginning of the show, this is how our audience responded to the very simple question. We've only been asking one question tonight. Can we talk to the dead? And this is how they voted. Let's have a look. 44% of believers, 19% of non-believers and 37% undecided. That was a very clear picture there. So let's vote again. Has any of what you've seen tonight, of any of the demonstrations, any of the tricks, any of the sincerity that you've heard from people who do believe influenced what you think and reshaped your beliefs? So vote now. Do you believe? Do you not believe? Or are you undecided? Let's have a look and see the way things look. So 54% are now believers, 24% are non-believers, and undecideds are down to 22%. So that means that both believers and non-believers have increased by about the same amount, a quarter. Let's now get James back on, let's get Chris back on as well, and let's have a look at these results. Come over here. So that's interesting then, you know, we're certainly helping to make up people's minds. Do take a seat, James. We're certainly helping to make up people's minds, but not necessarily in one direction or another. I mean, is that the kind of thing you would imagine?
I think that kind of epitomises the whole situation here. What we've actually got is about the same proportional increase in terms of undecideds going to decide that they now believe, as we have for those who've now decided that they don't believe. And I think that just kind of epitomises the nature of the evidence we've seen tonight as well. We've seen some evidence from Keith that's kind of quite suggestive. Other times it just didn't seem to work at all. OK, it wasn't ideal conditions, but the believers will have looked at your performance and picked up on the bits that seem to work.
Or perhaps the people that want to believe. I mean,
well,
is there a feeling that knowing that there's an afterlife, knowing there's life after death, serves some good?
In many ways. I mean, I think that psychologically, it's probably better to live your life as though there is an afterlife. If you look at the evidence, you'll find that people who don't believe in life after death tend to live for the here and now. They think this is the one chance you've got, have a good time.
And have a really good time.
People who do believe in life after death will sometimes be the people who will kind of try and lead good lives because they think the reward's going to come later. On the other hand, if you look at 9/11, they were people who thought they would be rewarded for their faith and their belief and they were going to go to paradise. So it can have some very negative effects as well.
James, what is your view then? Have we managed to convince you in any way or make you believe there is more chance?
I'm very interested in what I've seen this evening. I think I have to admit that, certainly. But science is not decided by votes. Science is decided by means of evidence and conclusions drawn after a long examination of that evidence. Voting doesn't prove anything except in the jury system, unfortunately.
Now, you decided to put your money where your mouth is, haven't you?
Yes, I have. The James Randi Educational Foundation that I represent is headquartered in Fort Lauderdale.